bien. Tu veux commencer בכבוד?
go.
בשמחה, go. כשאדם.
כשאדם הולך אחת שוכלו וחוכמתו, יוכל ליפול במהותים ומכשולות רבים, ולאכול לידי רעות גדולות, חס ושלום. ויש שקלקלו חורבות כגון הרשעים הגדולים מאוד, המפורסמים, שחיתו את העולם, והכל היה על ידי חוכמתה ושקלן.
Okay. So when a man goes after his sechel, his chokhmah, he can fall into very big mistakes and can stumble very greatly, and he can fall into very big evil. Chad v'shalom. And there are those who damaged very much, like the very big Rashaim, the famous Rashaim, that misled the world, and they went according to their chokhmah and their sechel. Now we're just going to do pshat, or whatever we left off to, which I think was where we're going to talk about the kavod and the ma'amarim. So let's just do this pshitut. That's a pshat level.
ועיקר העדות הוא רק ללך בתמימות ובפשטות בלי שום חוכמות, ולהסתבל בלא דבר שעושה שהיו שם השם יתברך, ולבלה להשגיח כלל על כבוד עצמו, רק אם יש בזה כבוד השם יתברך יעשה, ואם לאו לאו, והזה בוודאי לא ייכשל לעולם, ואפילו בשל גופר, חס ושלום, לספקות ויש שנפלטו גדולות מאוד מאוד, חוכמנה ליצלן, שנופל למפקות וערעורים ומערך אחד השם יתברך, על יד פי כן הנפילה ורעבה היא תבלית העלייה.
Okay. And the essence of Yahadut, to be a Jew, is only to walk in Tmimut and Pshitut. So Rabeinu is emphasizing the definition of what it means to be a Yehudi. Yehudi is someone who's simple, who's straightforward, who's like Yaakov Avinu. And it mentions over there the Tinyana of Yaakov Avinu. That it says about Avraham, it says that he was Tamim with Hashem Yitbarach. But Yaakov had a higher level of Tam. The Tinyana of Tam is higher than Tamimut. So Rabeinu is hinting to this Inyan, and he's explaining the Inyan that we have to go through. The Inyan of Yehuda, Yahadut, Yaakov, is to be Tamim with Hashem, Tam. To be an Ish Tam. And what is that? To go without any chokhmah, and to look at everything you're doing. What does it mean to be Tam? To look at everything you're doing, make sure Hashem is there. Sheisham Hashem Yitbarach. And not to pay attention to your own kavod. That's the ikar of what Rabeinu is explaining, what it means to be Tamim, to be simple with Hashem. It's a simple thing. If the kavod of Hashem Yitbarach is present in what you're about to do, do it. If not, then don't do it. Pashut. And then certainly if you ask yourself this question and you fulfill this, you will never stumble. Obviously very difficult, because what does the Yitzhara make us want to do? Not ask us the question. Not ask ourselves the question. Or for example, before we're about to do something, to convince us that what we're about to do is kavod Hashem. When really it's kavod for ourselves or kavod for something else.
So what's it that we do for kavod Hashem?
Anything to greaten the honor of Hashem Yitbarach. Which means following halacha. And obviously sometimes you can have two things before you, right? Maybe one thing, what do you call it? Is to greaten the honor of Hashem, for example, study Torah, but sometimes maybe it's to honor someone else. For example, go to a funeral, tu vois? And you're balancing between the two. Going to honor someone else, ben adam lachavero, would proceed in that scenario. So where's the kavod of Hashem Yitbarach? Most places. Obviously, there's very black and white scenarios. Am I going to go waste time, or am I going to go pray? Those questions are what we should be asking ourselves. But, for example, in the gray area, which is what Rabeinu is really determining here, when you go to work, when you're about to do a business deal, the conversation you're about to have with a goy, what am I about to do? Is it going to bring Hashem kavod or myself kavod? If I'm going to work with a machshava, the kavanah, that every single step I do, like Rabeinu says, to give tzedakah, or to do matan be'emunah, to be honest in my business, to do emunah in my business, to bring all the wealth to Hashem, to attain bonanut through the wealth that I have, then obviously it's kavod for Hashem. If what you're going to do is to have a very nice house so that you can flaunt it to other people, and you're pretending to yourself that it's for a nice Shabbat, when really it's for someone else, then you're not in the right place. And that's obviously where we ask ourselves the question, where am I holding? That's why Rabeinu speaks so much about the Inyan, Hechan ani ba'olam. And where am I? And Natan Uzon was speaking about this in in one of the letters he was talking about in Alim Nitrufa.
Yeah,
you heard it?
Yeah.
I think it was number 18.
Rabbi Natan was sending to one of his grandsons of
Exactly.
Rabeinu.
Exactly. And he was also speaking to one of the students named Moshe Chenkes, who later was Naged on the Talmidim. Very interesting story that he brought down in Yemei Atlaot, a special book that Rabbi Avraham ben Rabbi Nachman wrote on all the hardships that Rabbi Natan and the Breslevers went through, specifically the machloket Rabbi Natan went through with the Savraner Rabbi, one of the big Hasidim at that time, who drew a lot of students and created this unrelentless opposition towards Rabbi Natan. They later put out a death warrant on Rabbi Natan to go kill him. Very crazy thing. To the point, there's a beautiful story that Rabbi Israel likes speaking about, that Rabbi Natan was once on the way to his son's wedding, and they were all in the carriage, him and all the Talmidim and everyone, and the Mitnagdim ambushed them. This was at this time of the Savraner Rebbe. They ambushed them and started throwing stones at the carriage. And the carriage, on the way to the Chatuna of his son, diverted into the field. And instead of Rabbi Natan getting angry and upset, what did he do? He started dancing with the Talmidim. Meaning our Gdula, our Tiferet, our splendor, will be revealed at the time of Mashiach, the Gdula of Rabeinu. And that's what Rabbi Natan goes through, this entire point of all the letters. What did he speak about Moshe Chenkes? He always tells him this idea, what we were just talking about. He tells him, ask yourself the question. He said, wake up from your sleep and ask yourself, where am I in the world? And that's the same question that Rabeinu brings down in the first story of Sipur Masiot, where the viceroy goes out to find the princess, and he asks himself the question multiple times along the journey, where am I? When you ask yourself where you are, basically saying, where's the Avodat HASHEM? That's how you transform everything to a vehicle for Hashem. This is what Rabeinu is talking about. Because Rabeinu is about to speak about a very deep Torah, one of the deepest Torah in all of Likutei Moharan, that's going to discuss a subject that nobody had the guts to discuss for thousands of years, which is to explain to people that the fall is actually for the purpose of the ascent, which is a very difficult subject to explain to someone who studies Halakha every single day, studies Gemara every single day, and understands the black and the white of the scenario without the gray. To tell the entire world that, don't worry, pick yourself back up, the fall is for the purpose of the ascent, is a very dangerous topic to tell someone, because what are you telling him? Don't worry, it's fine. And even if you fall, it's fine. Imagine telling that to Naged at that time, he would chop your head off. Not literally speaking, but you know what I mean? To the point where this is a very difficult subject to express because it's very sensitive. You can take this in a very wrong direction. But how does Rabeinu start the lesson? With the premise of what that applies to. When does the Yerida turn into Aliyah? For what Rabeinu just explained. Are you searching for Hashem's Kavod? For a person, the essence of Judaism is to walk in simplicity, tmimut, without any chokhmot. And to look at everything that you're doing, is Hashem there? How do you do that? When you study Torah, when you study Halacha. Rabeinu said, Chog v'lo yavor, you have to study Shulchan Aruch. Like what Rabbi Natan was telling Moshe Chenkes in the same letter, you have to study Shulchan Aruch with all the big mefarshim. And don't forget not to study. You have to have koveya. You have to study Torah every single day. You have to remember why you're here in this world. And not to run after the parnasah that you've been running after. He says like this. And he says, even if you're running after, make sure to set the time to study. But to make sure that you're not looking at your own kavod. Is what you're doing for Hashem's kavod or for your own kavod? If it is for Hashem's kavod, then do it. If not, then not. And if you ask yourself this question, then you will never stumble. And even if someone falls, chas v'shalom, tisfekot, to doubt, God forbid. And Rabbi Avraham ben Rabbi Nachman is going to go into a beautiful perush about what this Tinyana is. Because it's really something special, how he gets into this. If you fall into doubt, chas v'shalom, and there's someone whose fall is very, very, very big, that he falls into immoral thoughts, he falls into sfekot. Sometimes he questions Hashem. Where are you? Hashem, what are you doing? Nonetheless, the fall and the yerida, the descent, is all for the greater purpose of rising up again. Meaning it's all there to bring you up to a very big madriga. But the only person who can be there is one, a person who believes that the only way this works is one, a person who's really searching for the kavod of Hashem be'emet, sincerely, meaning he's not faking it, like we just talked about in the couple lines above. And the second thing is a person who believes in Shum Yesh Ba'adam Klal.
In what?
A person who believes in Shum Yesh Ba'adam Klal.
No despair.
There's no such thing as despair in the world. Because a person who doesn't believe this Torah doesn't apply. It doesn't apply. All what we're going to talk about is a person who finds himself in the darkness. And that's every single person, 99% of the time. Which is why this Torah is so applicable. Why Azamra is so applicable. These two Torahs are the main Torah because it's a Torah of reinforcement. Hitchaskut. There's nothing more important than Hitchaskut. And this is what we're talking about there. Which is funny. I noticed when Nathan was almost saying it, how true it is. He's saying today, we don't have the Rebbe. We don't have a manhig. We don't have a leader. We don't have anything left. What we do have though is a chaver.
He's pushing so much on that.
And this is what Rabeinu speaks about
so much. You don't just invite your friends to your house and speak to him.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. This is the ikar what it means to be a Brasav Chassid. To have chaverim that you care about. That the main goal is that you're fixing each other for the purpose of becoming better. That you guys reinforce each other. Like Rabeinu said in Chayei Moran, I like saying this one because it's so חשוב. רק תחזיקו עצמכם ביחד, ואתם תהיו אנשים כשרים. All you need to do is reinforce yourself together. Then you'll be upright people. And it says not only אנשים כשרים בלבד, אלא צדיקים גמורים. צדיקים גמורים. Ça veut dire the inyan of becoming a tzadik gamor, which is everything Rabeinu wants, because Rabeinu said, I cannot come before the kisei hakavod of Hashem Yitbarach if I see you guys the way you guys are. Meaning I have such higher expectations for all of you. How can I come before Hashem Yitbarach and see my Talmidim not attain their potential? Rabeinu gets embarrassment by this. And he said, what's the main way to get to that madriga? Where Rabeinu can be proud of his student? Ahavat chaverim. Ahavat chaverim. And that's only it. Like Rabbi Yisrael said, En gdolim, en ktanim kulanu chaverim. And people have a problem with this phrase. Because you know why people have a problem with this phrase? Because they're searching for kavod.
Yeah.
They're searching for kavod and manhigut and leadership. So when someone speaks about this and they say, no, what are you talking about? There's this, that. No. Rabeinu wants chaverim. Rabeinu wants chaverim. And that's why you'll see very big Brasav Chasidim today. You'll look at the very big Brasav Chasidim. You want to know who's a big Brasav Chasid? Someone who's able to speak to the lowest Jew and the highest Jew in the same way. And it can be in the same room and can treat them with the same love without any taking kavod for themselves. That's how you know who's a real Brasav Chasid. A real tzaddik. Someone who you can't see is taking the pedestal above everyone else. Because what? He knows that the Rebbe is there and that today the main inyan is to reinforce each other with love. Like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says in the Zohar HaKadosh, Anan b'chadivut ha'talamita. The main thing is we're dependent on love. That's the main thing, the ahava that exists between us. And Rabeinu says this actually in Chayei Moran, and he said people will be jealous of the ahava that exists between my students. Will be jealous. You know why? Because the one thing is certain is that we know we're not at the place of the Rebbe. So all we can do is help each other try to get there. And help each other try to apply the advice of the tzaddik. Because all the tzaddik wants us to do is to become like him. The issue is though, we have so much of kavod, so much of ourselves involved, so much of ani, that we get rid of that. That becomes the focus, and the tafel becomes Rabeinu. And the students are there to remind each other, what? No. The ikar is the tzaddik and Hashem Yitbarach, serve Hashem Yitbarach with simcha, serve Hashem Yitbarach applying the advice of the tzaddik. And when you do that, you'll become who you truly are meant to be. And that's the inyan here. So Rabeinu is setting up the focus of this Torah, which is all the reinforcement. Make sure that you do it sincerely. And what's the sincerity behind it? Tmimut and pshitut. Ask yourself the question, is it for my kavod or Hashem's kavod? Is it for my kavod or Hashem's kavod? And I'll finish off with this, what Rabbi Natan says in Yemei HaTlaot. Rabbi Natan says like this, after Rabeinu passed away, and Rabbi Natan was gathering a lot of students, and this was at the time of the machloket, all the students saw how humble Rabbi Natan was in his own eyes. Rabbi Natan did not want to be called Rebbe. He told everyone, do not call me Rebbe. And this is the first time I saw this in Yemei HaTlaot when I was reading this. That Rabbi Natan himself said, do not call me Rebbe. But the students saw Rabbi Natan's humility and didn't care. And they drew close to him and called him Rebbe. Meaning Rabbi Natan's own eyes, he wasn't. Everyone else, he was. And that's the greatness of the tzaddik. That the Talmid is able to illuminate the light of the tzaddik, but he himself feels he's nothing. Everyone else, though, understands his greatness. And that's what we're talking about here. One who doesn't search after his own kavod. קידה.
קידה. כי שורש כל הבריאה הוא הכבוד, כי כל מה שברא הקדוש ברוך הוא לא בראו, אלא ירבודו, כמו שכתוב, כל הנקרא בשמי וירבודי ברטיב. ומאחר שהכל נברא בשביל כבודו יתברך, נמצא שכבודו יתברך הוא שורש כל הבריאה.
Top. So look what he says here. Know this, Rabeinu says. For the root of all creation is the subject of kavod. Kavod is the root of everything. Rabeinu is saying the source of everything in this world is kavod. Because the world was created and is fulfilled and is sustained from the koach of Hashem's kavod. From the strength of Hashem's kavod. Because everything Hashem Yitbarach created, He only created for us kavod. And what's the proof of this? It is brought down in the pasuk. כמו שכתוב, כל הנקרא בשמי ולכבודי ברטיב ויצרתיו אף עשיתיו. Right? Anything that is called in my name, ולכבודי ברטיב, I created it for my own kavod. I formed it, אף עשיתיו, and I also made it. Meaning, the source of everything that Hashem formed, created, and made is for the Hashem's kavod. So that people can come and recognize Hashem's kavod. So what do we see? Rabeinu says, מאחר שהכל נברא בשביל כבודו יתברך, for the fact that now everything is created for Hashem's kavod, we see what's the result of all this? That Hashem's kavod is the source of all creation. Okay, perfect. Okay, we can continue.
ואף על פי שכולו אחד, על כל זה באחייה יש חלקים, ובכל חלק וחלק מהבריאה יש בו בחינה כבוד מיוחד, שהוא שרשר כלל. וזה בחינה.
Okay, continue.
בעשרה מאמרות נברא העולם, והלא במאמר אחד יכול להבריאות, אלו בשביל שכר ועונש נברא בעשרה מאמרות. ובכל מאמר יש בו בחינה כבוד מיוחד, שהוא שורשו, כי הכבוד הוא שורש הכל. כגל.
Okay. So, Rabeinu says like this. And yes, it's true that everything is one, meaning that Hashem's kavod is one. It's echad because Hashem is one, and obviously his kavod is part of him. It's bichinat echad. Therefore, nonetheless, Rabeinu says, even though the kavod of Hashem Yitbarach is one, there are divisions within the kavod. There are sections of the kavod. And each section or each portion of kavod, or every portion of creation has a specific piece of kavod. Meaning, Rabeinu says, there will be a certain amount of elements of creation that will be corresponding to a certain amount of elements of Hashem's kavod. Because obviously we said every creation, every creature, everything that has creation.
Chayut from Hashem.
Exactly, as the vitality of Hashem's kavod. Therefore, every single piece, every single division of creation will have a specific division of kavod, depending on the level. So, Rabeinu says, every single division of creation will have a specific kavod, which is the root of that piece of creation, right? And this is what it says in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, Basara ma'amarot nivra ha'olam. With 10 sayings, Hashem created the world. Vayomer Elokim yehi or, Vayomer Elokim yehi rakia b'toch ha'amayim, etc., etc., etc. And obviously, Rabeinu is going to discuss what the Zohar Kadosh says, which is, there's not 10 Vayomers, there's 9 Vayomers. What's the 10th? And the 10th is Bereshit, the first. And Bereshit is the highest of Hashem's kavod. It is the most concealed. It is the kavod that is associated with Keter. Because now Rabeinu is going to explain what it says in the Mishnah. Ba'asara ma'amarot nivra olam. The world was created with 10 sayings. If the 10 sayings Hashem created the world with, if that's the case, what did he say? Ve'alo b'ma'amar echad yachol yibarot. Couldn't Hashem have created the entire world with one saying?
Yeah.
So what's the answer? Ela b'shvil sachar ve'onesh nivra ba'asara ma'amarot. Hashem created the world with 10 sayings for the sake of reward and punishment. Meaning what? Madrigot. There are levels, there are distinctions between each level of kavod. And every single saying that Hashem created had a specific kavod. Meaning if there's 10 sayings, there's 10 pieces of kavod. And what do those 10 pieces of kavod reflect? The 10 sfirot. Sheu shosho. And each kavod, piece of kavod, each piece of God's honor will be the source of that saying. So if there's 10 sayings, the saying that has to do with light, by hi'or, has to do with a specific piece of Hashem's kavod. Which will come from a specific sfira. And we're going to discuss the specific one, which Rabeinu is saying, which will bring vitality to all the filthy places, the doubtful places, which is what we're talking about, which is the kavod of Bereshit. And that's the sequence. That's the climax of Hashem's kavod. All the kavod of Hashem is included within that. Because as we said above, the kavod is the shoresh of everything. And this is what do you call it? And what it says in the Gemara Shema, that Bereshit Nami Ma'amahu, that it says, Rabbi Yochanan says over there, and he asked the question, isn't there only 9 Vayomer? Where's the 10th? It says Bereshit is also a sign. And that's where the Zohar goes into depth, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai goes to explain that the essence is the Sfira of Keter, which is the Tinyana Bereshit. And Rabeinu is going to really pinpoint on this. Look at the Parparot HaChochma says on Shas Sof Masachet Uktzin. What he says here. ידוע שגם אצל הצדיק צריך לפעמים להיות לו ירידה. Sometimes by the tzaddik האמת, that we explained above, that we're explaining above, that a person has to go through a yerida, and why we're talking about this yerida is because this yerida, Rabeinu is going to explain later, is there Hashem's kavod in that yerida? Because at a surface level there can't be. How can Hashem give his kavod to a filthy place? It makes no sense. It says in the pasuk we're going to see later. Hashem cannot give my kavod to the other place. In Yeshaya it says, I cannot give my kavod to the acher. What's the acher? The sfikot, the yurim, the mekomot tunafim, the filthy places. Well, we're going to discuss all that later. How Hashem's kavod is still there. This paradox is very fundamental across all of these teachings, and obviously it plays on this inyan of koach habechira, free will, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. But the Parparot HaChochma explains like this, that the tzaddik האמת also has to go through a yerida. ועל ידי זה די קבל העלייה, שזה בחינת והמכשלה הזאת תחת ידיך. אבל על ידי זה שעוסק לקבל רחוקים, שזה בעצמו בחינת ירידה, אצלו שצריך לקבל עצמו במדרגתם, על ידי בעצמו זוכה אחר כך לעלייה הגדולה, ואין צריך זה עוד לבוא בעצמו לידי מכשול, חסד שלנו בזה, ואין עמו מכשול. לצדיק האמת, what's his ירידה? This בחינה וירידה for the צדיק האמת is when he has to engage with other people. And he has to engage with the world. That is the ירידה. And there's a story which Rabeinu speaks about called the Turkey Prince. You heard of the story? It's called the Hindik, the Turkey Prince. And this is a beautiful story discussing a prince, son of a king, who once went crazy. And he was at the table with ministers and royalty and everyone, and he took off his clothes. Sort of went going under the table and started making noises like a turkey. Becoming Meshuga.
Oh yeah, I heard about that before.
Became crazy. So the king is obviously very distraught by this. He calls in the wife, he calls in everyone, nobody can help him. All the royal ministers tries to see this, nobody can help him. And the king is obviously very upset that he's dishonored by this because his son in front of everyone is doing this. And he's not healed. So the king brings in a person, he brings in one person after the next, nobody can help him. They tried convincing him that he's not a turkey, and he was not convinced. He thinks he's a turkey. Until one time the king invites a chacham, and this Talmid chacham comes, and he starts speaking to the turkey, and he sees the turkey is unconvincible, so he takes off his clothing
And becomes turkey.
and becomes a turkey, starts acting like a turkey. And the turkey, who's the prince, starts looking at the chacham. He says, "You're not a turkey. What are you doing?" He says, "Of course I'm a turkey. You're not a turkey." Start going back and forth. Who's the turkey? To the point where they both see that they're acting like turkeys, that they're turkeys. So they start having a discussion, and the Talmid Chacham looks at him and he says, "You know, a turkey can eat at the table with everyone." He says, "Oh yeah?" He says, "Yeah, look." He takes a plate, starts eating. He says, "You know, the turkey can sit with the royal garments. You can still be a turkey and still wear royal garments like everyone. You can still be a turkey and still be a prince." And slowly by slowly, the Chacham begins to explain to the turkey that what? He can still be a prince, even though deep down he's a turkey. And the subject of the inyan is beautiful. Because what Rabeinu is saying is that deep down, the neshama is something totally different. And when it comes down to the world, it sees all the sheker, and it wants nothing to do. And it can't handle all the sheker, so all it wants to do is escape. But Rabeinu says, you can't do that, because you have to engage with the world. The Chacham, when he wants to come heal a person who's Meshuga, who's a turkey like us, what does he have to do? He can't come as a Chacham, or else we'll never believe him.
Goes to his level.
He lowers his level. And that yerida for the tzaddik is what we're talking about here. The tzaddik doesn't fall into an avera. He falls into what we call in Torah Yudbet shegia daka, a small error that's l'shem shamayim to bring livelihood to that place. Because the only way you can bring someone back is to engage at their level. And this we see when Rabeinu was once engaging with the philosophers of Uman towards the end of his life. Rabbi Natan saw this, and Rabbi Natan was very afraid to enter the house of Rabeinu. He used to go travel for sometimes weeks at a time and stay outside the house for days. He would not enter the house of Rabeinu for days. He used to back and forth, go sleep, come back. Because he was so scared. He used to have real Yirat Shamayim, Yirat Harav. And he used to see Hershber, Moshe Landau, all these philosophers come in and out as if it was their own house. And Rabbi Natan was jealous of these people that they had the chutzpah to go, but Rabbi Natan had this Yirat Shamayim. And Rabbi Natan one day walks in with Rabbi Naftali and looks at Rabeinu and he says, Rabeinu, why are you playing chess with these philosophers? Rabeinu was playing chess with them. And Rabeinu said, with you I build worlds, with them I play chess. And what's the perush of the Sinyan? At a simple level is that for them, the only way Rabeinu could speak to them is playing chess. The only way Rabeinu could speak with Rabbi Natan is what? Building worlds, olamot, of Torah and Avodat HASHEM. The same is true for us. They say about Rabbi Israel, when people used to come before Rabbi Israel, that Rabbi Israel used to look at them and used to give them back the look that they wanted from him. Meaning what? That certain gangsters and stuff like that, when they used to come before Rabbi Israel, they used to look at Rabbi Israel as a very big, strong man who used to fear no one. Why? Because that's the picture they cared about. Someone who doesn't fear anyone. Their mafia bosses, their gangster bosses. You know, the Israelis from Haifa that used to come to Rabbi Israel. When Rabbi Israel was in New York, the mafia bosses that used to come to Rabbi Israel. Reshaim, they used to hold Rabbi Israel's hand, and Rabbi Israel used to make them do tshuva, make them read Likutei Tfilot, a chidush we've never seen before. When Rabbi Israel used to go to France, what did he used to do? He went to France twice, and he looked at them and he said, "C'est quoi ce boutard? C'est quoi ce truc? C'est sec." He didn't understand what the boutard was. He didn't understand what damchut was. He looked at it, he said, "What is this? It's dry." And Rabbi Israel used to speak with them about their food, their this, their that, until what? Look at all of them that made Aliyah. Because the tzaddik's job is to go to Tel Aviv, to go and engage with the people, and yet from there, to speak to them at their level and to say, but you know, my brother, you can still be as crazy as you are and still be attached to Hashem. Instead of dancing for your crave, dance for Hashem. It's all about transforming all the energy. And the tzaddik knows exactly how to do that, but the only way he does that is by falling first. And it's so great. This is what Rabeinu is speaking about, because we think Rabeinu is speaking about us. Rabeinu is doing this at his own level. But what's his level? By engaging with people. And his engaging with people is Rabeinu's Yerida. When Rabeinu speaks with people, he speaks about our ta'avot. You think Rabeinu wants to speak about our ta'avot? Rabeinu is beyond all that. And yet, what he's speaking about all this? He's talking to us about all this stuff. When Rabbi Natan speaks with everyone, when Rabbi Natan Likutei Tfilot speaks as if he's the one in that situation. He's not the one in that situation. He feels as if he's there because he has such anava, but he's not even close to there. And yet he's speaking about all of us. Why? Because he's putting himself at that madrega. That's the only way you can connect to someone. When you put yourself at their madrega and you enter their problem.
That's a secret.
It's a very big secret. And many times Rabeinu did this. Rabeinu said, Rabeinu guaranteed, he said, you know, the same way I feel for my granddaughter. I think it was his granddaughter who was sick at one point. One of his granddaughters was very sick. She was having a problem with coughing, I think. Very, very sick. Or she had a very big sickness, and Rabeinu used to feel every single cough that she had. He said, I can attest that I feel everything that she has. To the point where he said, I wish I can take this sickness upon myself instead of her. But when Rabeinu said, with regard to people that have come to do pidyons with me, redemption, to give money on behalf of Rabeinu praying for their soul, Rabeinu said, I can attest to all of you that the same way I feel for my granddaughter, I feel for every single person that walks into the room, regardless whether I'm related to them or not. To show you the anava and the sacrifice that Rabeinu went through to pray to get to the madriga that he would feel everyone's pain.
Rabbi was standing for 10 hours just to talk to people.
Yeah.
Standing up and just listening to it. Every one of them, only problem and only... and that's what he was doing all day. I mean,
Yeah.
How many hours he was spending on that?
It's unbelievable. And I think Rabeinu had a story with one of his students who couldn't move his arm. I think he was paralyzed on one of his arms. And he walked into this, while Rabeinu was giving the Torah, and he listened to the entire Torah. And Rabeinu looked at everyone after the Torah, and he looked at the man and he said, lift your arm. And everyone was shocked because Rabeinu was asking the man to do something he could not do. He was like completely paralyzed. the man lifted his arm. And weeks later, when Rabeinu saw Rabeinu, his arm was very much in pain. A lot of the time, the tzaddikim, they do all this stuff for everyone else. They take it all for themselves. Rabeinu took all the suffering of the generation upon his own body. The suffering that he had to do. Because the greater the tzaddik, the more neshamot he encompasses, the more pain he has to suffer. And this is what Rabeinu speaks about in the secret of lesson 65, the story of the teaching of the Bala Sadeh, the master of the field. That when Rabeinu's wife passed away and his son passed away, he began to start revealing secrets, specifically after his son passed away, the secrets of what it means to be a Bala Sadeh, the master of the field, the gardener, the ganana shelagan, the gardener of the garden. And what's it speaking about? The tzaddik ha'emet, who tends to all the neshamot, and how he upon himself has to take all the suffering. These are secrets we do not understand. And because Rabeinu encompasses the generation in its entirety, all 600,000 neshamot, because the Moshe Rabeinu is the dor, is the generation, as the Zohar says, Rabeinu had to take on suffering that we cannot even imagine. Forget the tuberculosis. Rabeinu said he could have gotten rid of. It was way beyond that, though. All the suffering, the sicknesses, the tefillot that he had to do for everyone, the pain he had to go through, the sins that he had to repair, all the traveling he had to go through. We don't even understand even a little bit. All of that to help others. And this is what we're talking about here. Obviously at the tzaddik level, but we have a different thing. So what were you saying? So Hashem created the world in 10 sayings, and he could have created it with one, but what? To create division. To create sachar va'onesh, reward and punishment. What did that mean? Sachar va'onesh. אלא להיפרע מן הרשעים שמאבדים את העולם שנברא ב10 מאמרות, וליתן את שכר טוב לצדיקים שמקיימים את העולם שנברא ב10 מאמרות. As the Mishnah says, to punish the reshaim, what do you call it? That are completely lost from the world that was created in 10 sayings, and to give sachar tov to the tzaddikim that fulfill the world, that bring sustenance to the world that was created in 10 sayings. And this is why Hashem Yitbarach, the Bartenura says, why Hashem Yitbarach created the world with 10 sayings, and why he bothered himself to create it with 10 sayings, to give punishment to the Reshaim. And because Hashem bothered himself so much to create it with 10 sayings, and the Reshaim don't even care about the fact that Hashem took in the effort and the time to say with 10 sayings, that he's going to punish them. And all this stuff. So what is Rabeinu's inyan though with regard to schar va'onesh? What's the subject here? What does that have to do with anything? Because if the world was created with one saying, Hashem's kavod would be with one achdut, one unity. Like it is truthfully by Hashem Yitbarach, that it is one and Hashem is one. But then there would be no free will. Because there would only be one and everything would be black and white, and there would be no transfer up, down. Because you would recognize Hashem's kavod within every single specific element of creation if it was only one saying. And therefore it would be impossible to give schar tov and to do good and to give punishment, etc., etc. That's the inyan here. I think, okay, yeah. So we can continue a little bit.
וזה בחינה. ובחלו כולו אומר כבוד, שבכל מאמר מלובש בו כבודו יתברך, שאל יד זה נברא העולם, כי מלוא כל הארץ כבודו, ואפילו בעבירות ודברים רעים, חס ושלום, ששם אין כבודו יתברך, בבחינה ובודי לאחד לא אתן, שיש גיבול להכבוד, שלא יתפשט לשם, ועל פי שמולו כל הארץ כבודו, על כל זה יש גיבול כשמגיע למקומות אגל, שלא יצא לשם בבחינה, ובודי לאחד לא אתן כגל, ויש גיבול לכל כבוד בכבוד, שמולבש בכל מאמר, מאמר, מעשרה, מאמרות, כגל, שלא יתפשע למקומו החיצוני.
Okay, so Rabeinu continues, and this is what we say in the passage containing. Uvhechalo, in his Hashem's chambers, kulom kavod. Everybody says kavod. Kavod, glory. Meaning what? The world, which is Hashem's chamber, is created entirely b'ma'amaro, ובהיכלו כולו אומר כבוד. So now Rabeinu did say, what is אומר? אומר comes the word מאמר. Saying, שבכל מאמר, that within every saying, מלובש בו כבודו יתברך, that Hashem's כבוד is included in there. ובהיכלו, in Hashem's world, in his chamber, כולו אומר כבוד, כולו אומר, meaning every אמירה, כולו אמירה, כבוד, has כבוד in it. Meaning every single one of Hashem's מאמרות has what? Has כבוד. A specific כבוד. שבכל מאמר מלובש בו כבודו יתברך, שעל ידי נברא העולם, and through that כבוד Hashem created the world. The kavod gives sustenance to the saying, and the saying creates the world. Ki melo chol haaretz kavodo, for Hashem's glory fills the entire earth. So what is the Tinyan here? He continues. Va'afilu ba'averot u'dvarim ra'im, even in averot, chad v'shalom, even in evil things, like avodat hara, chad v'shalom, shesham en kvodo yitbach, that there Hashem's kavod does not exist. How do you know this? B'fchinat, as it says in Yeshaya, u'chvodi le'acher lo eten, it says about Hashem, Hashem says, I will not give my kavod to the other. Acher, meaning anything which is other than him, other than his kavod, other than his Torah. Sheyesh gvul kavod shelish Hashem. What's Rabeinu saying here? That obviously, if Hashem is saying that, that means there's a boundary to Hashem's kavod. There are limits to Hashem's kavod. It cannot reach certain places. ואף על פי שמנו כל הארץ כבודו, עם כל זה יש גבול שמגיע למקומות הללו. And even though we said above that Hashem's glory fills the entire earth, we just said though that there's a boundary, there's a limit, there's a place where Hashem's kavod cannot go. And my kavod will not be given to the acher, to the other place, God forbid, to those filthy places. That my kavod will not go out of boundaries and go to that place, as it says, there's a boundary to each and every element of kavod, every saying, which has every element of kavod, meaning there's a boundary to every single piece of kavod, which is encompassed within every single ma'amar of the 10 sayings. Meaning every saying has a certain boundary. For example, saying number 2 might only reach, what do you call it? Level 2 of the klipa, but not level 1 of the klipa, which is even more filthy. Or level 10 of the klipa. It might only reach level 9, but not level 10. Another saying might go to another level, and then there's what? The kavod of Hashem Yitbarach, which cannot enter the filthiest place.
But this still gave a vitality from Hashem.
Yeah, so that's what Rabeinu is going to answer here, and that's going to be the paradox of this entire Torah. How a yeridat can turn into aliyah, because it makes no sense. How can a fall turn into ascent if it's a fall? That's unlogical. It already happened, and on top of that, it's a fall. It's wrong. How can he turn it into an ascent? And no, Rabeinu is saying it's not that black and white. There's a gray. And in that gray area where you're able to do that teshuvah and to search for Hashem truthfully and to find Hashem's kavod from that place, when you're successful in finding the kavod from that place, that's when the fall turns into an aliyah. Because normally at a surface level, the kavod of Hashem did not exist in the klipa. There's no kavod of Hashem in a church. There isn't. And yet, how can it exist without the kavod of Hashem?
Nothing can exist without Hashem.
Exactly. But the paradox is that then there's no right and wrong. And yet Rabeinu is saying, yes, there is. The hard part, though, is to understand that it cannot be at a revealed level. If you understood this concept, then there'd be no free will. Because then you would know how in that church there's this place and this, and then you know there's Hashem Kavod in that place. You cannot go to the church, though, in the first place. It's not allowed. Chad v'shalom. You cannot go, Chad v'shalom, to the club. It's not allowed. And yet when you're there, Chad v'shalom, you find yourself in a bad place, Chad v'shalom, in a very bad place. And yet, maybe a year later, a week later, 2 years later, 10 years later, I don't know when it is, but you do a teshuvah from that place, and you maybe go through the same area and you do not fall there, and you find Hashem's kavod from within that place, and you transform all that yeridah into an aliyah. For example, it's a very good example, how those people you saw at the Nova Festival, the Nishmatam, were able to transform all that place into a teshuvah. Meaning what? They were able to die al kiddush Hashem. And yet at the surface level, it's simchat Torah. But they died al kiddush Hashem. And those who didn't die al kiddush Hashem started believing in Hashem. And were ma'amin b'Hashem yitbarach. Did they know that place would become a place of kedusha? No, absolutely not. But when you fall into that place and you fall into sfekot v'yorim, as Hashem brought down, Hashem etzilenu, what ended up happening? Teshuvah. And they found the kavod of Hashem Yitbarach in that place. And that kavod of Hashem Yitbarach, which retrieved from that place, now became the Aliyah. So that what? Now there's Achdut within Am Yisrael. Now there's a Teshuvah within Am Yisrael. Now you see people who've never been doing Shabbat. And you don't understand how this has happened. There was one of a very special neshama named Yehuda Becher, Nishmato, passed away at the festival, who was in Uman multiple years, who, he knew Rav Yifra and everything. On the way to the thing, he was wearing a petek, singing Elokai Neshama. It's a very famous song that he was singing. Everybody knows about it now because they redid it like 2-3 times. Multiple artists came out and started redoing the song they were singing. A beautiful song. How from that place there's a teshuvah. Now people are wearing a cameo. Now people are doing a fatzah with his name on it, with a picture on it. We don't understand, and passed away at Kiddush Hashem, which is nothing bigger. How a yeridat can turn into aliyah. That's, if we understood that, there'd be no free will. And the reason why is Rabeinu saying, begilui at the nigle level, when we're going to talk about halakha, pshat, gemara, this doesn't make sense. The only way it makes sense is when we're going to enter the Sot of the Torah, which is what? Sipurei Masiyot, Zohar Kadosh, Likutei Moharan. When we enter this Torah now, the Torah of the Keter, Torah Me'atik Astima, now we'll understand how the Yerida is in an aliyah. Tshuva Me'ahava, right? You can turn your sin into a mitzvah. How? It has to be Me'ahava. Why? Because Ahava has to come from Keter.
What did you say? Atik.
Atik Astima, the hidden ancient one. There are things, Rabbi Natan introduces the Likutei Moharan with this, there are things which Hashem Yitbarach had, shekisa atik yomin. So what does it say over there? Atik yomin, ad atik yomin yativ. It says that the Mashiach will sit up until atik yomin. And the Gemara goes an entire drasha about what this inyan is. It says in the Gemara that these are, let me look at it right now, because it's very famous, I forget how it goes. Gemara Psachim. Velimchase atik. Coverings of old coverings, old garments, old. Something which covers something over. Old coverings, as it says in the Pasuk in Yeshaya. Velimchase atik. Ze hamchase dvarim. Shekisa atik yomin. This is the one who covers over the things which atik yomin covered of. The thing which the Keter, the Torah of Keter, which Hashem Yitbarach at the level of Keter, the one who sits on the Kisei Kavod, who's Zaken Malei Rechamim, who has a white beard, who gives the 30 Midot HaRachamim, this picture we have, because there's no vision of Hashem, we can say, but that picture, that imagery that we have of Hashem Yitbarach, which is the Bechina of Atik Yomin, the one who's the Ancient of Days, the one who has a white hair, the one who's completely Rachamim Chesed. What's it referencing? This Inyan of Keter. Those secrets. So what does Rabbi Natan say? There are those who say, what does it mean, Velim Chaseati, coverings of old? It's in the Gemara Pesachim, those who cover over that which Atik Yomin covered over. Those secrets which Atik Yomin hid, like the Ora Ganus. And what did he say? There are those who say, but there are those who say, the one who reveals that which Atik Yomin covered. Mishe Megale, Vetarvahu Kachada. But the truth is, they are both applicable with regard to Likutei Moharan. Look how Rabbi Natan introduces this. Because Rabeinu reveals and he covers over. The more he enters the topic, the more you realize how hidden and ancient it is. Rabeinu says, Ani kan maleh chadash. Ani kan chadash maleh yashan. I'm a new flask filled with old wine. It's new and it's old at the same time. Rabeinu says, I'm going to lead you upon a path that is completely ancient and it's completely brand new. The same path which the Avodat HASHEM went on. It's the same inyan here. What's Rabbi Natan saying? Rabeinu reveals, he explains things which are very supernal, hidden. Chidushim chadashim, new chidushim. Hagdamot yekarot, precious hagdamot, rudiments. Noraot v'niflaot, awesome and wondrous things. Etzot merachok emunah, amen. The work of a master craftsman providing advice from afar. Which stem from the source of the water of life. A source which is very high and very ancient, very lofty. And what does Rabeinu say? What does Rabbi Natan say? He brings it down. Rabbi Natan says, וכל תורה ותורה שגילה לעם סגולה, every single Torah that he revealed to the chosen nation, כולם מלאים עצות ונפלאות ונאות ועבודתו האמיתית יתברך, are filled with what? Awesome pieces of advice, wondrous things, to serve Hashem Yitbarach truthfully, as a person will see with his own eyes, if he looks at them, be'emet la'amito, with a truthful eye, with the eye that is desiring the truth, be'emet. But this was Rabeinu's kavanah, this simple element, this simple thing, to wake people up from their slumber, to apply the advice b'pshitut. One whose heart is doubtful, and does not want to understand or perceive the holiness of this book, my words will not help him. And what does Rabbi Natan say? Every single Torah is encompassed of pshat, remez, drash, and sod. Every single one, Rabbeinu saying. והן בדרך פשט, הן בדרך רמז. בכולם יש בהם עמקות גדול, נפלא ונורא מאוד, אך עיקר כוונתו הקדושה הוא פירוש הפשט של בכל תורה ותורה. But every single Torah, Rabbeinu's kavanah, every single Torah is the simple explanation. כי לא המדרש הוא העיקר על המעשה. The main thing is action, not study. And Rabeinu says, וכל כתבי הרי, Rabbi Natan says,
לשמור ולעשות.
לשמור ולעשות, exactly. We study in lesson 2. And that's how you turn the Torah that you study into neshamot, to be renewed in aspect of Yibur. And when you pray, now you're able to renew that neshama completely. וכל כתבי האריזל, all the writings of the Arizal, and all the writings of the Zohar Kadosh, ותיקונים, וכל דרכי הקבלה הקדושה, all the writings of the Kabbalah, כולם כאחד, all of them, like one, כלולים בדברי הספר הקדוש הזה, are all encompassed in the works of this book. Meaning, today, everything is here. Everything is in here. And I was talking to my friend today, because he was explaining to me that someone wanted to start drawing clothes and study the books of Rabbi נחman, and he studies, So my friend told him, study Likutei Moharan. Or my friend told someone who was an intermediary, tell the man to study Likutei Moharan. And the intermediary told him, you need a teacher and this, that. And my friend came to me and he told me, what do we do? And I said, Be'emet la'amito, if you believe the words of the Rebbe can apply to everyone, you can pick up any sefer.
By yourself.
Likutei Moharan. By yourself.
With no teacher.
Yeah. And Rabbi Natan explained this in Likutei Halachot. When your ratzon is chazak for Hashem, when your lev is bo'er LaHashem Yitbarach, when your heart is yearning for Hashem, the book itself will teach you. It's a chidush. The book will become the Rav. What does it mean? Make for yourself a Rav, and make for yourself acquire for yourself a Rav, and make yourself a Chaver. Rabbi Natan says, the Rav is the Rabeinu, and the Chaverim are the Talmidim. Now that the Rebbe is here, open up the Sfarim. And Rabbi Natan says, what's the Chaver? The Sefer. The Chaver will be your Sefer. Like Rabbi Natan said in Alim Nitrufa, he told Moshe Chenkes, study the books, because the books will bring you life and will get you out of this world of Sheker. Study the book. And he said, make the books your best friend. This is the Ikar. When the books become your vitality, your life. So Rabeinu writes in, there's a conversation that is noted down in Korveor, that Rabeinu once told someone like this, word that is shocking. And I told this to my friend. I said, you're right for introducing Likutei Moharan, because it's a book he wants to study deeply. It's a book that you should go in, even if you don't understand, apply. Because Rabeinu said like this to someone. He said, if you think for 1 second that any single lesson doesn't have practical advice you can apply from, meaning if you believe deep down that the lesson I'm teaching doesn't have practical advice, then you're not Bikoes. You're a heretic. Because every single Torah has practical advice, even the Pshitut that you can apply. If you want to take the advice in simplicity, take it for what they are and act on it. And that's Rabeinu's real kavanah. As deep as Rabeinu's book is, because there's an infinite amount of levels you can study it on, the highest level of all of it is the Pshitut behind it. Take the Torah, Go to Likutei Tfilot, beg Hashem to apply. Go to Yidbodedut, beg Hashem to apply what you read and study it again. Go to Papa L'Chokhmah, study it. Go to the Biur Likutim, study what Rabeinu is applying. Study the conversation, study Chaim Moran, study the books. Bipshitut, just study and apply the best that you can. Read Likutei Tfilot, read Likutei Etzot, the book of advice that Rabbi Natan wrote to help you apply the advice of Likutei Moran. Read Kitzur Likutei Moran. Rabbi Natan wrote it so that we can apply the advice in bullet points, in simplicity. When a person does this, he's a winner. And you need nothing else. You don't need to be the biggest Talmid Chacham. We don't need any of that anymore. Talmid Chacham, Rabbi Yisrael used to say, Talmid Shel Chacham Ha'emet. Talmid Chacham is a Talmid of the true Chacham. That's a Talmid Chacham. To become a Talmid of the true Chacham.
How is that? Amen.
So,
it's a big chidush that we can just learn by open the book and read, but like you said, we have to have a perfect state of mind, no gava, nothing, and just empty ourselves and then take
for sure
everything that we can take from the book.
Totally. It's not to say Chad v'Shalom that you shouldn't listen to a person who gives a class on the book and stuff like that, because you, like Rabbi Shimon Shambaski and all the Talmidim, right? You have to learn from someone who knows more than you. But to think that Rabeinu doesn't have the words to apply, meaning that there's no application, that you cannot pick up any lesson and study it, that is Chad v'Shalom. That is a very big mistake to think. Any person can open up the book and study it for himself. And Rabeinu wants that, because Rabeinu himself will come and guide you. Siftotam davdevot ba'kever, his lips will move in the grave. As Rabeinu explains in lesson 12, there's an iddapkut rucha berucha. There's a ruach that is now bound to the other ruach. The ruach of the Tana that gave the chidush is now going to be bound to the ruach of the Tana, the Talmid, who's studying the chidush. And there's a ruach, there's a kiss, there's a zivug that happens. Rabeinu says, not only that, look at lesson 7. Rabeinu says, when you accept the zera of the tzaddik ha'emet, you are accepting the zivug. It's nisuin. You're getting married to the tzaddik. You don't think when you get married to the tzaddik's going to give you something? You don't think the husband gives something to his wife when they get married? He has to. Rabeinu says in Sipurei Masiyot, the 7 beggars, I will give you, the beggar, each beggar gives the gift to the newlywed couple. The beggar which is blind, gives them the gift of being blind, meaning what? The one who can see the furthest. Or the one who has the crooked neck has the most beautiful voice. He gives them the gift of the most beautiful voice. The tzaddik ha'emet will come and give you, the broken couple, the poor couple, all the gifts. But you have to recognize how far you are from him. When you recognize how far you are from him, which will increase the longing for him, the longing, the ratzon for the tzaddik will give you the ability to become like the tzaddik. So, look what it says in Likutei Halachot, Hilchot Arev. הלכה ג' הכלל הוא הרצון להשם יתברך אשר רק בשביל זה בא האדם לעולם הזה. Now Rabbi Natan can explain what this inyan is.
In 3 minutes we're going to do Likutei Tefillot.
Yeah. Look what he says. הכלל הוא הרצון להשם יתברך. The main thing is the ratzon for Hashem. אשר רק בשביל זה בא האדם לעולם הזה. Only for this reason a person comes to this world. This is the main purpose of a person. To long for Hashem. This is the fall before the ascent. Why? Before a person has an ascent in Avodat HASHEM, he needs to fall before. Because the fall is actually for the purpose of the ascent. In fact, the fall is the purpose. We'll explain later. Rabbi Natan says, let's try to understand this. What's the idea here? There's a big question. Why is it that the fall is specifically so that we should merit it in a sense? Why do you need to fall before rising? The main reason why a person comes down to this world is for the ratzon, for the will. This is why a person needs to go down to the lowest place in the world, filled with the biggest tumah, filled with the Instagram, the ta'avot of this world, with all the pritzut of this world. A person needs to come down to this world specifically for that reason. Why? What's the proof? Because the lower you are, the more you should long for Hashem. Because the further you are, the more your longing should increase. Therefore, when you fall, God forbid, into a ta'ava or a sin, and then you fall even further, ואז אם זוכה אחר כך להזכיר את עצמו ולשוב בתשובה להשם יתברך, then if you merit afterwards to remember and to return to Hashem, to do teshuvah to Hashem, אז אחר כך בוודאי מתגבר הרצון יותר ויותר, then the longing will be even more because you remember the filthiness of the sin. מחמת שיודע בעצמו גודל רחיקו מהשם יתברך על ידי ריבון עוונותיו, because now you recognize, you're conscious of the fact of how far you are from Hashem because of your many עבירות. על כן בוודאי רצונו חזק ותקיף להעמיד מאוד מאוד להשם יתברך בלי שהוא יראה. Therefore your longing will grow to an immeasurable amount because you recognize how far you were from Hashem and you never want to be there again. ועל כן יכול לזכות על ידי זה די כלמעלה יתרה. Why do you merit a high level now? Because your ratzon is higher. When your ratzon is higher, you are higher. This is why במקום שבעלי תשובה עומדים אין צדיקים גמורים יכולים לעמוד.
Now we can understand this.
Exactly, in the Gemara Barachot, in the place where the Baal Tshuva stands, the Tzadik Gamur doesn't even stand. Exactly, the Ratzon that he had is longing. Now, how does Rabeinu attain the highest Madriga, Baal Tshuva and Tzadik Gamur? Because for Rabeinu, it's always doing Tshuva. By the fact that he didn't perform the mitzvah of Tefillin with the proper simcha, that's a yerida for Rabeinu. A bigger yerida than even us, Chad V'Shem, not putting on Tefillin. Chad V'Shalom. Because the tzaddikim at this level we're talking about are so high, all they want to do is to be precious in the mitzvah. The Rabeinu said in Likutei Moharan, he says, a person, if you were to have a shining light of Hashem Barach, a true shining light, he would recognize that if he did not perform a mitzvah properly the way he should, he would want to expire from the fact that he did not do it the way he should have. Forget an Avera, he would not even want to live in the world 120 years, this, that, he would want to erase everything. He says, even the mitzvah putting on tefillin, if he did not do it b'simcha, or the way he should have done it, with proper passion, he would want to die from it. So you don't think when Rabeinu doesn't, or Rabbi Natan did not do the mitzvah of tefillin, tzitzit, did not perform the tefillah properly, that they did not want to leave this world? This is exactly what we're talking about, because their ratzon is always being mitchazek. Rabeinu says, the main thing I want for you guys to do is to get to the madriga of ratzon muflag, and the only way you can get there is emunah. What we call ratzon muflag is the ratzon that is beyond words. It's muflag. It's an extreme ratzon that's beyond description, to the point where Rabeinu explains what zakeni liyot yodi. What's the ratzon muflag? When you scream out to Hashem and you look up at the sky, all you can say is, "Give me the merit to be a Jew." Give me the merit to be a Yehudi, a true Yehudi. Yotam beyashar. So what is it? Now Rabbi Natan is explaining a chidush kamor. Why does a person fall to an avera? Because sometimes doing the mitzvah is not enough for Hashem. Because sometimes you do it with such habit, this, that. That's not being close to Hashem. When are you really close to Hashem? Rabbi Natan is saying this. When are you really close to Hashem? When you fall into the avera, and on the condition that you yearn for Hashem from that place. How did the viceroy find the princess? Only because he fell and he ate on both times when the princess told him not to eat. He ate on the first time, he didn't fast on the last day, and on the second time he fell asleep. He drank the wine. And he has to search for 70 years, and those 70 years are hell. But in the end, he finds a princess. Because it's not about whether you do the mitzvah or not do the mitzvah, or you get to the madriga of tzaddik. No. Hashem wants to see, is your ratzon still holding? After I push you down time and time again. And if your ratzon is still holding, that's how your yerida is turned into aliyah.
We have to work on our fire.
Yeah, our fire.
Keep our fire.
And Rabeinu says, all the fire that you do for Tumah is repaired by the fire that you have for Kedusha. Anything that is purged through fire, meaning in Hasharat Kelim, when you want to kosher a vessel,
you have to go
through fire. Anything that's been through fire, through Tumah, Tavod, Ra'ot, Ka'as, all these things, how are you going to repair? Fire. When you're going to pray B'itlavut, when you're going to go into Mincha Arvit, and you're going to say, you're going to scream so much in Tefillah, people are going to kick you out of Tefillah. That's how much.
2 minutes.
So what did he say? I didn't bring it. I need to bring it next time.
Don't have?
You know, let's look at my phone here.
Yeah, I
have to look. I don't know which number. It's downstairs.
No, it's okay.
Let me see.
When we finish, we do it.
Yeah.
We're supposed to do it when we finish with Torah, maybe.
Let's do it when we finish the Torah. I think it's this one. I don't know if it's this one.
It's an amazing concept to do tefillah after every learning. It's something also
the ultimate.
Revolutionary.
It's really the ultimate. Cham libi bekirbi ba'agigit tivarash dibati b'lishoni. C'est exactement ça. Exactly what we're talking about. That my heart is on fire within me. Like exactly what we said. Just not doing it right now. But
Beautiful.
Baruch Hashem.
Beautiful.
Top.
Nice class.
Merci.